What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving into our free-to-play account again, and I'm going to be working on building that second deck. I did import a list that I wanted to kind of mess around with. It is a rat-based deck with playing a lot of the new cards from Wilds of Eldraine, while also touching up and using some of the cards that I've previously released in other sets here in MTG Arena. It seemed like a fun archetype. I do enjoy playing stuff that is new. I don't want to, try to build a deck that is going to be something we've seen already. As we may look at the top of the meta, typically a lot of the decks on the top of the meta are decks that have existed in the meta for the most part, but I do like playing decks that are a little bit off the curve. Maybe they're not as meta, but they do fairly well overall. I think when I looked at it, the list was still with not too many matches played, but had a decent win rate overall, but does seem like an interesting deck that someone may not be expecting. And rats do seem kind of cool based on some of the cards that are in Arena. So I will show you the deck list. We are in our deck tab now. This is the list here. It shows that I need 2 commons, 13 uncommons, 19 rares to complete the deck. Currently, when it comes to wildcards, I have 26 commons, 22 uncommons, 12 rares, 4 mythic rares. So the one thing I'm going to do, because I want to keep this list around as I kind of build up to it, because I do think it's something to kind of look at, maybe to get an idea of where I want to go with the deck at the end. But the first thing I'd like to do when it comes to this is simply you click the deck that you're wanting to edit. We're going to go down here. We're going to hit the clone button. And what this is going to do is just make me an additional copy of the deck. So you see here, Rakdos Rats 2. This is going to be the deck that this is going to be the one I'm going to mess around with when it comes to adjusting it to make it playable or possibly playable and maybe a little bit more of a budget form that I can currently afford. So we'll double click the deck. We'll open it up. I'm going to move myself down to the corner where I'm not in the way of anything for you to see. And this is the list for the most part. If you really look at the list when it comes to rares and mythics, you got some uncommon cards, commons. This is a rare. This is a rare. Uncommon, uncommon, rare, uncommon, rare, uncommon, uncommon. And then the mana base, what we're missing is actually the rare land. So that's 12 rares right here. So if we were to actually cut these out first, and I'm just going to drag these into the sideboard. Or we're going to drag one of each. This is just going to signify that these are lands that I don't need, and we're just going to get rid of the lands here. So we are down to just the basics for the most part. So I do think when it comes to making a deck a little bit more budget friendly, I do think cutting the lands immediately is probably a way to go, just because typically, especially in even dual color, multicolor decks, the mana base is kind of intensive when it comes to overall rares and mythics. I do think something at the end, that's something you definitely do improve upon when it comes to actually adding them eventually into the deck. But I do think if we at least have the meat of the deck, which is kind of like the other rares / mythics that are in the deck, I do think that'll put us in a decent spot to kind of get the deck going. So let's just pull the actual rares out of the deck and kind of just see where we need to go with everything overall. Then I'm just going to kind of organize them a little bit based on what set they're from. So that is also another good thing I like to do, just kind of get an idea of what sets I have to pull the cards from. And for the most part, outside of this one Chromonics, the Rat King, the rest of them are all from Wilds of Eldraine, so it's definitely not that bad. And if you do the math real quick, if we actually add all these cards up, so we have 2 of this, 4 of this, 4 of this, that's 10, plus 3 of this. That's actually combine that with the lands. We're roughly around 25 total rares, so that means we actually do own copies of these cards or some of these. So if you actually were to go down real quick and we go to Craftable, what you can do is click on the card, and if you own any copies of that card, it will tell you how many cards you would need to craft. So crafting will consume 1 rare wild card. If we go here, we I guess own 1 copy of this rat. If we go to the Tangle Colony, we already own 2 copies of it, which is pretty sweet. So we really only need 1 additional or 2 additional of that. The Rat King, I think we own only 1, and then this card we don't own any, because if we did, this box here would be filled in. So that is kind of where our base is of what else we have to kind of figure out how we're going to manage our overall wildcard base. Another thing we can do that I haven't done yet on the account for the day is kind of go into do my daily challenge and do that type of stuff. Maybe get some currency, see if we're close enough to buy a bundle of 6 packs. That is another good way, because 6 packs will guarantee at least one rare wild card, and then maybe possibly in the packs we'll get some other additional rare wild cards when we open them. I do have a pack floating here, so there's a possibility in that 1 pack of Wilds of Eldraine that we could pull some of the Wilds of Eldraine cards we're missing. Other than that, the other thing I would probably want to do here is This is the sideboard. That's what we're taking out. I probably want to first look at the mana base, right? Just kind of get ourselves, if we were to keep the list, we got to find 11 cards overall to add into our list to kind of get it back up to where it once was. So the first and foremost, the one thing I'm going to do here is just go into the mana base, go to red and black, probably go lands, and then go this one and get rid of that. So what we need to do is add in some of these tapped dual lands. I know they're not as good as the rare ones, but definitely something we can do. We can technically actually, if I go here, take the Sulphur Springs out. We're actually going to add in one Sulphur Springs back because it does seem like we do own 2 copies of it. So we're going to add 2 copies of that, which is actually pretty good. I'm going to assume I pulled one when I opened some packs, and I think you do get one of these for free from one of the red-black starter decks. So we're actually up to 51 cards. And then we just need a combination of probably, we could either take the Zatora Proving Grounds, which could be pretty useful, though we're not playing green. It's still a rare land. We can cycle it in the late game. It does come into the battlefield tapped. Maybe an option, we could also just play straight up just, 4 copies of each of this. So we could just do this. Just do this, and maybe just do one of these for good luck, and that is kind of like our mana base. And the reason why I have these is because I crafted them for our other deck we have here on the account. And what I'm going to do here is actually probably get out of this deck. And what the reason why is that because I've already kind of extrapolated the what I can't actually craft out of this. We're actually going to hit done. And we're going to hit OK, which it's just telling us, hey, there's cards in this deck that you don't own copies of. And what we're going to do here is I'm actually going to make a copy of this deck. And this is kind of like the process I do when it comes to building the overall deck. And what we'll do here is we'll go into our sideboard real quick. I'm going to actually take the cards out of the sideboard. And what I'm doing here is I'm kind of just building the building blocks of what cards will go in the sideboard or cards I'm cutting that we'll eventually have to craft. And that is kind of like where we'll go with that step. And then maybe we'll just fine tune it down to where we're basically at maybe just enough rares to kind of get the deck done. So first and foremost, I do think it's going to be the easiest if I go ahead real quick, craft probably all the common and uncommon cards that I need for the deck, just to kind of get those filled up so it doesn't look like we're missing as much, because it does seem like we're missing quite a bit, even though we really aren't, because we can craft all those cards that we don't currently have. So real quick, we're actually going to click on this. So we have 1 copy of this. So I'm going to pull this to the side. We don't have any copies. Might have a copy of that. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell sometimes. Sometimes it does say we do, sometimes we don't. There's, like I said, we have 2 copies of this, so we only need 2 of those. I don't think we had any copies of these yet, so basically, what we could do is we could, instead of hitting craft, you could always thin this down and then put one of these in the sideboard. So then you can see like, hey, I have one of those. We can thin this down, put the card I don't have into the sideboard. Now we have 2 of those. Then this, well, don't actually thin that down. Put one of these into the sideboard. And then we can just put all those into the sideboard for now. So I have 1 copy of this. I have 2 copies of the rats, and then I have 1 copy of this. So not that bad, when it comes to in terms of overall cards that we have in the deck. I'm just going to put these back in the proper CMC. I'm going to click real quick, and we're going to actually just click this, create 4 copies. I can't hit the craft all button to make this quicker, just because I don't have the rares for the cards in the sideboard currently to actually add those. So we're just going to do this just to kind of get the cards added that we're missing. And the other thing too is we're running a little bit low on common and uncommon wild cards. As you see there, we're going to be dropping below 10 for uncommons there, and we're actually going to probably go down to 4 actual additional uncommons. So if we have to replace any cards in our deck with cards that we don't own, we have to look at the rarity overall, just because we are missing. We don't have a ton of uncommon wild cards to really work with. We do have a decent amount of common ones. But what we'll do here is, because our deck is rat themed, what we could do here is simply just go and hit rat, and then kind of filter down and kind of look at cards that we could possibly add. This card's not a bad possible addition, just because it is a rat when it flips over. It is a card that is going to drain our opponent for 1 life, gain 1 life. It is a 2/2 menace, and then it gives vehicles we control menace, but it's not really the main thing. Rat out's not bad. It's a -1/-1. Create a black rat. This one, if we were playing a ton of enchantments. Toxic's not bad. It's a 2-mana 2/2 with proliferate. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, it's a human. There's also, because it's just rat, it's a possibility that some of the cards that are here have a word in it that has RAT in it. That's why it's filtered down to this. We can also do like this card, enters battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you sacrifice a food, you create a rat. Don't know if we're making a ton of food tokens. That wouldn't really help us out. This is a 1/4 rat that sacrifices an artifact or creature. Draw a card, activate only if opponent has 3 or poison counters. Not a bad rat, but something that we're not really focused on overall. So it doesn't look like really too much is going on here. There are like a few things, but not a ton of things that we could really add. We could add this card in. It's a 3-mana 2/1. When it enters battlefield, create a 1/1 token that can't block, and whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Not a bad card. Something we do have copies of. It's a common, so it's not going to cost us too much to fill it. Some of these cards that I know definitely aren't rats. This is a rat fairy that at the beginning of the end step, if a creature died this turn, create a food token, sacrifice another creature or artifact, and gets +2/+2. So it could be pretty interesting, like top end cards for our deck, because we are lacking maybe some cards to kind of avoid what our opponent's doing. Just trying to see here. Not really too much. That is a rare. This one creates a rat, and as long as it creates 2 rats, and then as long as it's our turn, it's first strike. Whenever I control becomes blocky, it's +2/+2. This could be a pretty solid card, right? Because it's a card that we may get a lot of rat tokens, and this is going to help us make those rat tokens a little bit bigger at a budget. So definitely something we could consider in the deck. Where is it? So we'll add 2 of those. As you see there, I took the crafting off just to kind of see what we actually own, and then I'll turn it back on, just kind of see what we don't own that's in between, because there are some cards we still have yet to pull in terms of overall for our overall card pool. And then we'll kind of finish out here. Enters battlefield, create a 1/1 black creature token. This creature can't block. It's a 4-mana 3/3. More of a draft card. This card is whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. For each attacking creature, if a rat is attacking, it gets trample. Another interesting card. Definitely kind of more gimmicky. Maybe sees more play in like limited, but definitely not a bad card to possibly have here. We're just going to continue through, just double check, see if there's anything else. And then you see here down at the bottom, there is green. It's saying that, oh, there's green because we have green in our mana base. We don't actually have green, so we take that out. We'll scroll here. We then move into like the multicolor cards. In terms of rats, this is a human warlike bard. Whenever it or another non-token creature we control dies, we create a 1/1 black creature token that this can't block, and target attacking rat you control gains death touch. Definitely not a bad card to have in the deck. It is a card that's going to help us out, so maybe that's a card we add maybe like 2 copies of, maybe 3 copies. Like I said, we do have to watch out for our uncommon wild cards. We only have technically 1 open uncommon slot then if we take that card and craft 3 copies of it. Other than that, it doesn't really seem like there's too much going on in the rat tribal in these colors that we could get in the multicolor. I'm just double checking once again, making sure I didn't miss anything. All right, so what we can do now is we can do not collected. We could do commons. And just filter it down to commons that we could look at crafting with the word rat in it, or possibly with the rat archetype. Take a gander. We could go to like this card and just have another way of making rat tokens if we need to. We could just add 4 copies of it. Not a big deal. Creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. Whenever a creature controlled, non-token creature we control dies, create a rat creature token. So maybe a way to do some sort of combat trick with the rats we have. It's interesting. Not sure how good it will be. Another thing that we could do in this process is also like test it out, playing against Sparky. I know Sparky's not really good as not being a real player, but it is something where you can kind of test out and see the cards you added in, see if it feels good. Even if Sparky's not very good at playing Magic, Sparky's not bad at actually kind of just testing out, seeing how the synergies overall in your deck are. And the other thing I want to take a quick look at is your overall CMC, kind of see where your curve is. Right now we're right about, like a 2.5 2.5, maybe 2.6. We're very solid in like we're very even actually across the board. So we're like a very solid 1, 2, 3 deck with a couple high end cards. So we don't really need a ton of mana in terms of what we need in the top end. 3/2 ninjutsu. I don't know if there's gonna be many things we're gonna get through for free. We could add that in the 3-drop slot. We could add in another copy of this card. Just because why not go to 4 while we're lacking one? So might as well add our 4th copy. I guess I already own 4 copies. No, the garb is not great. I guess we could add the 2-drop. Kind of tossed up between the 2-drop or the other card that we were mentioning before. I guess we'll add this, but we can play around with it and see how it does. So, I mean, this is our list. Basically, what's in our sideboard currently is kind of like cards we could look at add in. Another thing we could do, I've noticed, just because of the way the deck is built, we're missing a lot of removal. A lot of our cards don't have a ton of removal in that way. So maybe we could add in some additional cards that have that additional removal. Maybe instead of like adding in like this card, I don't think I have enough uncommon cards. That's the problem. But we could add in a card called Cut Down, which is, I believe, an uncommon. It's a pretty solid like removal spell. It destroys a lot of things that have power and toughness less than 5, which is quite a bit, especially in the early game. It's pretty effective because the problem with Go for the Throat is it doesn't really target if our opponent's playing some sort of artifact deck, or we can't target it with this. So we always having like that kind of removal is always very good. So you could always go like, if we wanted to add a couple copies of this, we could do this. We go to craft. We can add in 2 copies of Cut Down, and then probably just trim a card back down to 3. So we can kind of go like this. So then we have like 6 removal spells, and then we have our rats that we're kind of making up here, and we just click this craft all. And it's yelling at me that I don't have enough cards. What am I missing? I set that's 2, that's 4. Where? Oh, you know what it is? It's yelling at me because of the sideboard. So we're gonna have to do it. Gonna go in and do this manually. So we'll do this. And I just realized I crafted 4 copies of that card. I meant to only craft 2. So now I don't actually have enough for this rat guy. So we're actually just gonna get rid of him, I guess. And then we're gonna have to kind of alter our plan a little bit because I messed up, and that's my fault. I wasn't paying attention, and I don't have now enough uncommon cards to actually fill that slot. I could add another copy of her. I could add in the combat trick, just kind of get some additional pressure, which isn't that bad. Yeah, it's not bad. Well, I'm 2 copies of that. And then we'll just craft our 3 copies of this. And then, in theory, this deck should be good to go. It's yelling at me because there's cards in my sideboard. But what I could do, again, is go into this deck. I can make another clone. And then this deck could be the one that we play. And all I have to do is take these cards out. And then this deck is the playable version. Now, the other thing, too, I didn't do, I'm just realizing as I'm doing this, is I didn't actually spend my rare wild cards. What I'll do first is actually, I'll hit save and exit just so we save our things. I'm going to open my pack. I could get some cards that could work with our deck. We did see that Piper. It looks like we also got another uncommon. So we can actually probably craft the 2 Pipers again. And we got ourselves a mythic rare. A mythic wild card, which doesn't help us in that sense, but definitely helps us a little bit closer. So let me go back into the deck now that I opened that pack. What we could do here is, now that we have those 2 uncommons, we could probably cut 2 of these out. We can then go into gold, cut the green and the colorless. We could add in this guy. We can go to 2 copies. We can craft all. And the other thing too that I could do is save and exit. I can go back into the decks. Let me go down here. Let me take a quick look at Rakdos Rats 3 because this has the cards in our sideboard. And this is where you kind of get an idea of where you can go. So we can add Tangle Colony, which seems like a okay card, but not a great card, right? It's like a good, like, maybe later add. Chromonics is not a bad one. We only need 1 copy of this one. And it gives our other rats Toxic, which is also pretty good. It makes all our rats a little bit more dangerous, even though they're just little 1/1s that can't block. You got Lord Skitterfring, that whenever another rat enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target card from the opponent's graveyard. And at the beginning of our combat on our turn, we create a rat token. Also pretty solid. And then this one's just make a bunch of tokens. So, and they gain haste, and creatures I control gain haste. So all of them pretty good. I do think when it comes to add in them, I do think the main 2 that would probably add 1 additional copy of each, going back into our main deck that we're going to be playing, is I'd probably add in 1 additional copy of Chromonics and 1 additional copy, not the Skitter Butcher, where's the other guy? Do I not have any copies of the other guy? This one, Lord Skitterfring. I think adding 2 copies of that, having 2 copies of each of these is going to be pretty solid. I think the Piper's pretty good. We'll cut that other card that kind of pumps our team and kind of go with this list. So I'll craft all. We use our 2 rares. So now we have mythic rares, 1 uncommon and 18 commons. But now we have ourselves a pretty solid Rakdos Rats deck, where we started with a deck that pretty much wasn't craftable because we were missing a ton of rares. We were able to throw something together. Probably won't be as powerful just because we are missing some of the high-end copies of the rares. So we're not going to have a ton of copies of Tangle Colony. I don't think we need any more copies of the Chromonics. I think there's still 1 more copy or 2 more copies of this one. And then the other thing that's going to feel a little clunky may be the mana base. But other than that, this deck should feel pretty good. And we're just going to play on the play queue and kind of see how it does overall. Opponent's going to go first. Hand's okay, right? We're missing a land, but we do get a card draw. We have 2 lands, so we have a few chances to actually probably get that land. I think I start out with the typical play tap land turn 1. And this kind of shows you like the whole how downside of having a bunch of tap lands in a deck is, just because that means we're a little bit slower. It looks like we're against some sort of deck here that is all about trying to get rolls. It looks like mono white humans, or possibly it'd actually be ban humans. We'll mill you. All right, so roll can like ban control. Sure. You can get a scry. We'll double block. And then we'll -1. You get a rat. Play untap land. Play this. No attacks. Fight rigging. A fight rigging deck. Interesting. Put a counter there. And they're going to pay 1 to copy the ability. I mean, it seems aggressive, I would say, overall. Because, I mean, what if I were to just remove their creature? All right. The other thing we got to look out for is that they do play removal. So they play like board wipes, which is something that maybe we shouldn't go heavily invest in. Because like we saw farewell. A jewel thief, sure. Great treasure. Nice. So we'll play this. We'll go to rat. We'll attack. We give it Death Touch. some rats. And I think this is GG's. And we got ourselves there. All right, so we had a unique deck our opponent was playing. It's like Bant, I guess, Control. I don't know. You have Farewell. We have Vanquish the Horde. And you have some cards in between, like Vendors, Weaver of Harmony, and Jewel Thief. So overall, a unique deck in that manner. We won't see what their exile card is, so we don't know what they hid away. But I don't know. Kind of interesting. It's like a aggro deck mixed with some control aspects. I don't know if they play counter spells. We didn't see one, so I was unsure there. But we saw removal. So definitely kind of, I guess maybe they were doing their own thing, trying to build maybe a ban control deck without having all the cards. So definitely cool to see. I mean, it's okay. I wouldn't say this is anything like amazing, but it's not a bad opening hand. We'll do the typical play tap land turn 1. We have untap lands from there forward. Looks like they're playing mono white. They're flashing in on their turn their creature. Huh. What is that all about? Typically, you don't flash it in. You flash it in at the end of turn to be like, okay, I'm seeing what you're doing. I'm going to flash this in because that makes the most sense. But I guess maybe they have a card to pump. Sure. No attacks. Interesting. So they don't even attack with a token to get another token. Huh. I could just play removal. And I guess just get rid of this. And then I won't do anything. Fortunately, I didn't effectively use my mana there, so it's a little awkward. Sure. We'll give it to this. It doesn't really matter. No attacks. So definitely an interesting deck so far. Opponent's been not aggressive. So there's a possibility that they don't actually do anything this turn. I mean, I personally would probably attack. Just because I'd make a bunch of dudes. And I feel like they kind of know I have to put a bunch of... Sure. Spread the wealth makes sense. No attacks again, which I feel like is not the play because then I can just do this. And then they didn't get any value out of it, and then they just have a soldier. Sure. Alright, this is literally just a deck full of random cards again. They have soldiers, but then they also have Bunicorn in the deck. Alright. We'll get rid of 2 of their permanents. I'm sure they get 1/1s, but I don't think it's that bad. And we'll play this. I can't block with it, might as well steal one. Opponent, read the card. Oh man, if they only read the card. I mean, I'm not gonna be mad about it. Yeah, I'm gonna slowly just eliminate their board. I'll take a little damage in the process. All right, it looks like we're just doing this. No attacks. We'll sit back on blocks. Sure. This does... We bargained? Deals 3 damage and I scry. Alright, opponent, you learned from the last time. Nice. 3 damage. Alright, they get a scry, which is solid. They keep on top. Interesting. 3 damage. What do I want to do 3 damage to? I want the scry is really all I want to do here. I guess we will just get rid of this. I'll bargain a creature that can't do anything, so we'll get some more. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Go to combat. We'll attack with our little rat. All right, we're gonna slowly get there with our rats. Watch out, opponent. Be worried. Sure, creature tokens they get +2/+2. Okay, so they'll bounce. We'll kill 1. Deal damage. And then we will do this. We'll attack. We will then play this. And I guess we'll play the Rat King. I should have played it before, but it's okay. I messed up. That's my bad. I didn't want to kind of like show them the plan. Maybe they're going for... I don't know. Maybe they're doing math. I don't think that's the card. Block here. We'll block the 2/2. And we'll block a 2/2 and we'll take 4. And then I get a rat out of it. Yeah, definitely a good game. And 6 poison. Yeah, I mean, it was a unique, I guess, spin on like mono white humans. But I was like unsure of exactly what's happening. Like, I guess it makes, maybe they're like a tokens deck. So they play like this card, which then they get a creature you control gets +X/+X on the turn where X is the number of creatures you control, which is, I guess it's interesting. And then I guess other than that, it becomes a 2-mana, making your tokens bigger. They got Bunnicorn in here because of all the other tokens. And I guess they got other ways they can generate additional tokens with Marrow, which they never attacked with, which I think was a misplay. I think they should just made the board as wide as possible, which would have been in a better situation later in the game as we kind of, you know, we were able to still be okay with a decently wide board, but not super wide. But overall, unique deck, I would say. This is definitely a slow hand. We got to draw land, but we'll keep because it's kind of powerful if we're able to hit. Alright, we'll just get rid of the tap land out of the way. We have enough mana now to cast anything in our hand. Either of these are pretty solid. Alright, they're going to draw, which is fine. We'll actually then go ahead and we'll cast Lord Skitter then, because I do think that's going to be good there. And then they have to make a choice if they're going to remove Skitter or cast their 3/2. And it makes sense that they would go ahead and start there, just because it's probably better for them overall. Then I think this turn we follow up with a Chromonics, since there's nothing else that we really want to target in their graveyard. They're going to make sure they hit land next turn. So it looks like our opponent's on Golgari. Mid-range, I guess is what you would call it. We didn't draw our land. Now the question is, do we hit a rat in our top 5? Yeah, we do. Nice. Granted, we have a ninjutsu face up. But might as well start the toxic counter going on here. Also still making it very awkward for our opponent to really do a lot. Sure, to start. Get the removal out of their hand, which is fine. Tap land's not what we're looking for. Well, let's see if our opponent's gonna actually block. I personally say no, because the face-up card is there. Yeah, we'll let it go. And we'll just play another Chromonics. And we'll get this. So our opponent's kind of seen what our deck's all about. Good thing is that they've kind of wasted a decent amount of removal. And I guess a cut down really only deals with the rat. It doesn't really deal with Chromonics. I will take 3 because I'm at 22 as well. I will take the 3. Now they do also play Bushwhack, so there's a possibility that they're gonna fight. I was thinking this. And they're going to take 1. And they're not going to recast it. Interesting. We'll mill you too. Looks like they got... It looks like a Golgari fight deck of some sort. We'll ninjutsu. I guess we'll bounce this back. And we'll target itself. Gain a little bit of life. So the downside is our opponents had an answer for our cards. That's fine. Looks like they're maybe gonna fight something. Sure. If I can get a land, I think that would be very beneficial. I guess we'll just do it this way. We'll ninjutsu our another Prowler out. We'll give this lifelink Death Touch. And then the -1 will go here. Actually, sure. Gave me more life. One turn. So my opponent gave me a ton of life that turn. They should have fought before I got damage dealt. Dig up. It looks like they're going to find a card. Could be anything. Could be a boat. Sure. Down to 8. And then I guess in this situation, I'll just play both of these. We'll just create a black rat, and we'll hit for 1. Sure. One has a ton of land. You do have a lot of land. We'll see what happens. See what they're up to. Another obliterator. Perfectly fine. Got a 3-2. Take 5. We'll make rats. And we'll just fill the board up. Sure. What do they got in their graveyard? Menace, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, if it has fewer than 4+1/+1. Alright. We've been 1 back. Interesting. Do I block? It doesn't matter. My guess is they have a fight spell. Sure. My guess is they have a fight spell. 10 to 1 they dug a fight spell. 4 virtue. I'm gonna say that's not the spell they chose. I'll block. Not what I want to see at this position. I would love a removal spell. Let's see if they block. I'll sack a land. I have more than enough lands. Sure. You can't attack your opponent. If I have any sort of way to pump these rats, just that one additional... Yeah, you can't attack. Now, what would be really clutch here is if I draw the card that's going to give all my rats wicked counters. Because then they have to block. And they have a spell. Maybe. They have priority hold. Question is, what could it be? They have 2 counters, so it's not there. These can't do anything. This is not castable, so whatever is in their hand, they can't cast it. Sure. And you get an Obliterator back? You get a Rat King? Why wouldn't you just take the Obliterator? Or the... I'm so confused. I don't have any resurrection, so... Sure. Should have just got an Obliterator. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered either way, but I feel like the Obliterator was just the play because the other play is just memeing at that point. Right? Like, Obliterator makes the most sense. Like, than my Rat King, just because my Rat King is just a 3/3 and you exile cards from a graveyard? Doesn't seem like that's the more optimal, because if I have to attack you or I lose the other way, you put pressure on me attacking you by playing an Obliterator that just becomes this big stone wall defender. Maybe the opponent's not used to the deck, but I think overall for what we were going up against with all the rares / mythics they had, we did fairly well. All right, opponent's going first. Hand's okay. Yet again, dual lands, tap dual lands, kind of slow, but you know, we do have removal, we have some creatures, so I do think it's, good overall. Something green. Gotta worry. Yeah, I guess we're unfortunately in that position of they're gonna probably follow up with a 2-drop. Or not. Okay. Okay. Then I think we do it this way. If they didn't play a 2-drop, we'll mill you. So possibly mono green with some tricks. That's fine. Probably not the play. Just because that happens. And then I think we just get the Lord Skitter King going, and we start eating their graveyard. And we'll get rid of the Rot Priest. They don't need that. As of right now, they don't have the best. Okay. Well, that kind of changes everything. They're going to eat their own card. I guess they don't want me to get... whatchamacallit from their graveyard. But I'm just going to get rid of the Gorilla. That's a card we definitely cannot let them have. And we'll also play the Spear Guard. And we'll eat the Gorilla. Don't want them to get that back. And they can't attack us yet, so do that. I can make them stuck at... Yeah, why not? We will bargain the rat. I don't want the tap dual land, so we're just going to put that on the bottom. We'll get rid of their mana ramper so they can't cast a 5-drop. They'll have to draw the land for it. 2/3 is fine. And a Willow Geist. Okay. That is, like, auto include. Do I attack aggressively in with the Lord Skitter? Probably not. They didn't read the card. Sure. I mean, I guess if that's what they were going to do anyway. Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting effects there. Sure. We'll get rid of the Kadama. No, we'll just attack him with the rat. See if they want to do this again. That's fine. See if they're paying attention. And I think we get this out, because then it makes all our rats that much better. We'll then look for more rats. We'll get a rat colony. I don't care. Maybe they will get aggressive. Land off the top. Another 5-drop? Ozolith, sure. Putting counters on things. No attacks. Wow. Wowie, wowie, wow. I'll get a rat. Alright, opponent has... We have the widest board. Another gorilla. Don't have any artifacts. Not doing anything. Look at that death touch on lifelink. And we'll attack. You don't want to block. All the triggers. I only get the one, though, because there's only one card to target. Sure. You got another one to cycle. Looking for an answer. Because if I attack with everything except for this, that's fine. A lot of land. Renovate Raw Priest. Just need a land. Land would be king. Sure. Not bad. We'll get rid of the Ozolith. We'll attack him with 9 of these. We'll attack him with this. And we'll attack in with this. I probably should have attacked him with one more rat. Now just realizing. Just because I think that would have guaranteed whatchamacallit here. I think that would have guaranteed toxic kill. Or no, I would have attacked him with 2 rats. And we'll end turn. Feeling pretty good. We drew a pretty solid hand. We're able to withstand some of our opponent's more powerful cards. They're cycling another Ozolith, sure. I mean, I'm open to just taking an attack. And I think our opponent saw the rain on the walls. Had a wide enough board that even with their 2 blockers, they couldn't absorb all of this damage. I think we would have killed them multiple ways. I was going to cast this at the end of their turn, get 2 more rats on the battlefield, and I think that triggers this as well. Because that would equal rats entering the battlefield, which then I'd eat a card from the graveyard. If we drew the land, maybe we cast this, and then each would get a Wicked roll, which then would give them all +1/+1, which would be pretty awesome. Yeah, so I think we would have killed them by Toxic. We probably would have killed them by damage. The power of rats, I guess, when you get the synergies all together. Also, big shout out to this card. This card's pretty solid. I think this is a card that I did not see in the original list, but definitely a card that turns these little 1/1 rats into some threats that your opponent has to kind of consider if they decide to block. And we are back. So here is our Rakdos Rat deck that we mostly played through in that play queue. I'd made some modifications from where we started. I took out the triomes and just kind of trimmed down a little bit on the tap dual lands because I did feel like that was a big pain point of the deck. I upped the amount of swamps and mountains in the deck because those are untapped lands. But overall, this is the list that we played with. It felt very fun, especially when we did get our engine going of being able to generate a bunch of rat tokens and then just kind of overwhelm your opponent that way. I do think Tattered Ratter was definitely a pretty solid card, just making our rats a little bit harder to block just because they would get buffed up when they did attack. Totens was also very solid, given our attacking rats death touch by tapping 2 is pretty good. And then Null Crescendo, another way if our opponent decides not to block, we can plus our whole team and get that much more damage in on our opponent for 3 mana, which definitely was pretty solid. Other than that, you know, it's a fun deck. I do think Rats is definitely something that could see some play here and there. It's definitely a fun archetype to play. It's definitely something that's not very common in the meta ladder. And here would be kind of like the base version of the deck that you could play if you were looking to get in this list and didn't have all the cards I had in my collection in my version. I'll have this one also linked down in below. This would be all the cards in the sideboard that you would cut out from the original list that I do have also posted down below. So this is kind of like the base version. I also made a version that is like the next step up. So this would be adding some more additional rares, adding 4 copies of the Song of Totens, also adding like 4 copies of Tangled Colony, adding in the One additional copy of Lord Skitter. This would be the next step up before you start actually updating the mana base to add in the additional lands. In the sideboard here, this is actually what I cut out to kind of get to this version of the deck. So these are just some of the cards I added in to kind of fill in the gaps for cards I didn't actually have that were rare and mythic. And here is the final version of the list that we kind of started with and made our deck out of. I do think this is going to be a fun deck if you can get all the rares and mythics for it, as I do think that Rats is definitely a fun off-meta archetype that you could play, catch your opponents off guard, and just overwhelm them with a bunch of swarming rats. If you liked the video, hit that like button, definitely helps out a lot. I tried to do something a little bit differently here, try to use my free-to-play account, kind of see my approach to actually crafting a deck that maybe I didn't have all the cards for. Let me know you guys think down in the comments below about what you think overall. If you like the video, hit that like button, definitely helps out a lot. If you're new here, you want to post new videos like this one here on the channel, hit that subscribe button. But until next time, I'll see you in the next video.